Downtown Revitalization Initiative for Hicksville. It's really good to see such a big turnout, and it's exciting as we get closer to the realization of some of these things. We're going to start off tonight with some comments from the Town Supervisor Joe.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our third meeting. It is very exciting to be here with all of you. We're packed to the rafters, which is a great sign of all of those involved and our residents. And we're really doing something very special, something unusual, something that will be the template for the rest of the state of New York. And I'm proud to be part of that. Joining us this evening are our town board members, two of which who have been working on this project for many years. Ladies and gentlemen, Councilman Anthony Mackinone and Councilwoman Rebecca Alessia. We also have with us Councilman Lou Brodo, Councilman Tom Hand, there's Lou, and State Assemblyman Michael Montesano. I'd like to begin by thanking the person responsible for this project, the person responsible for initiating this entire program, and the person who we have to thank for making sure that they saw in Hicksville very good people, a great progress, and a great downtown, and that is our Governor, Andrew Cuomo. Big thanks to Governor Cuomo. He's represented by a number of people here from the state, including Dave Ashton from the Department of State. And I want to thank you. Dave, where are you? There's Dave Ashton from the New York State Department of State. I'd like to thank the co-chairs of the DRI committee, the Honorable Dave Capel and Deputy Supervisor Greg Carmen. Thank you to the two of you. And last but not least, a very important group. And that is a group made up of residents, mostly of Hicksville, town of Oyster Bay, very caring people from all walks of life. Please stand up and be recognized. All of the people who have been working on this project for so many years, please stand up and be recognized. They've been working on this for many years. Your vision, your insight, we really appreciate it. Thanks to the whole community, all the members of the LPC, the local planning committee. We have great experts. We've been granted the opportunity to work with planners and architects, and those are the members of HKS, the planning firm of architects. They have a worldwide reputation. Cecil and the team has been working on projects all over the world. As a matter of fact, one of the members representing HKS can't be with us this evening because he's working on a similar planning project in India. So they are in demand. They're experts at what they do from Dubai to Des Moines. And we really appreciate the opportunity for the state to pay for some of the best in the world right here in Hicksville. And that just really joins with all of the others. And the last group to thank are the most important of all. The people we need to listen to because you have the experience, and that's the residents of Hicksville. Please give yourselves a hand. Frankly, you're the driving force behind this process. Many of you have been here for every single meeting, telling us your feelings, your insights, what we should focus on, what we need to fix, ideas that won't pan out, protecting our safety of the community. All of your input has been critical to making sure that that we have success in this process. The DRI award is but the beginning of the process. Just the beginning. People said, well, we've been here for months now. It's actually been about 6 months since the governor has announced that Hicksville will be the recipient. And what this will lead to is quite a bit more in the coming months and coming years of a partnership between public money and private money. And that's the real idea. The revitalization of Hicksville through this process becomes the catalyst to great change. The kind of change that the residents want, that we can wrap our arms around, that we can embrace, and that we know will do the most amount of good. And we will continue to work on the revitalization of Hicksville. It's not a one and done. This will continue throughout the months and the years ahead, because what we see and what the governor has seen in other parts of the state is that this becomes now a momentum builder. And there'll be a clamoring of the private sector to want to come to Hicksville, to want to invest. And we will continue to listen to you, to work with you, to make sure that it's done properly. I mentioned some of our elected officials here in support. I see we've also been joined by our Nassau County Legislator Drucker. He and Rose Walker and Laura Schaefer have been a part of this process since the very beginning. So the investment of all the sectors with your guidance is paramount to the success of this revitalization. So we're here to thank all that have been involved in this process, giving us the opportunity to consider our priorities, to introduce us to the concepts that will restore the thriving downtown, consider and incorporate input from those who understand Hicksville best, our residents, to narrow our scope to fit the parameters of the state's DRI requirements, and also work within the funding, which obviously is critical. Who knew that $10 million, that you could burn through $10 million this quickly? But first and foremost, we're creating the catalyst to keep on going with this process in the proper way. We'll form a proper public space to turn Hicksville's downtown into a destination and encourage private investment that will continue the redevelopment in the coming years. So I thank you for all the roles you've taken in this, all the help you've given us, all the direction and insight that you've given us in the past, and that we know you'll continue to give us moving forward as we show the rest of the state the right way to get it done. And so now, I'd like to turn our meeting over to Cecil Bacalor to give us an overview of the proposals that have evolved through this process. And I'm going to end off by not only thanking our leaders, all of the leadership, but to tell you one of the signs that we're doing it right. The governor has been following what we're doing very closely. And he has related to us that he's very proud of the progress we're making and very proud of the way this process is going. To encourage participation from everyone, from every walk of life, from our business owners to our residents, our school district, and the list goes on and on. So when in a very competitive process, to be seen as the leaders in the state is a very big deal. I'm very proud of you. I appreciate all you're doing, and we're going to do something very, very special with your help and your input. Thank you very much. Cecil?
Thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor. What I want to start saying is thank you for the very kind words about us as professionals. But I want to tell you that what truly humbles us is to see the passion and commitment of the town. To see this bigger turnout is one thing for me as a professional who's worked on several of these projects, to see how long it takes to get something actually going. But when you live in the town and you've gone through this process and you've seen time after time that ideas fell flat and nothing happened, it is finally a chance for something to happen. To see this kind of enthusiasm is really special. It's sort of what drives me. Okay, so what we're going to do is, let me show you, this is basically an agenda, if you will. So we're just going to briefly look at where we are in terms of the whole planning process. Then we're going to summarize everything that we've heard from you. Then I'm going to show you the proposed projects, and finally, sorry about that. We're going to hear from you. And so as I go through the project, each one of you, as you entered here, has been given a sheet asking for comments. So as we go through each comment, please feel free to write comments, write your opinions, your feelings, as you see when we go through. Okay, this is a rough schedule, and what you see here, this is true for several of our projects. It begins with analysis. That's us looking at the town, learning as much as we possibly can. We then go on to exploring alternatives, priority projects, and what that does is allows us to explore things, show things to you, hear your comments, and leads us to a point where certain things start to become more solid. And then finally, we get to this point where we're proposing ways of using, at least as the supervisor said, the first part of this investment in different projects around town. So, to start off with what we heard from you, what I want to say is that, as the supervisor mentioned, my colleague Eric is away on another job. But the way that we worked is, for many of you familiar faces that I see, he conducted the sort of public comments, and I was sitting there at the desk, frantically writing notes. So I got down just about everything that was said. So what I'm going to show you now is a distillation of some of which I thought were the most pertinent comments, listening to what everybody was saying. Firstly, downtown is too congested. That came up again and again. Sorry, this is not as bright as it should be. What it's showing is all the possible traffic routes in downtown. And you can see by the amount of red lines there that clearly, if you're trying to negotiate that, not an easy job. This is the drop-off behind the taxi stand, north of the rail. Here you can see people dropping off, people waiting for people coming off the stage, off the train, parking, and people walking to their cars. Not a good combination of things. Next comment. There is no place I would like to spend time in downtown Hicksville. This is part of this idea that downtown Hicksville has become this traffic parking lot, and there's nothing in the way of amenities for people. Drawing JFK Memorial Park, tiny, 0.7 acres. So measured against other towns, this is very small in terms of amenity, in terms of public amenity. Not only is it small, but it's cut through by traffic. The area underneath the elevated railway line, not a place where you'd want to spend time in. And then the little area near to the Eagle from Penn Station, where these college kids are waiting for their bus to collect them. Surely we can do better than this. This was verbatim. Somebody stood up at the public mic here. This was, I think, at the last meeting, and said, why does downtown Hicksville have to feel like a parking lot? And you can see here is a map with all the parking sort of designated, and he can't be faulted for feeling like that. This is the impression you see looking at downtown Hicksville. So it's a combination of things that have made commuters, the railway station, the value of the land, adding up to this as a picture. What it looks like. The next comment we heard from a lot of people was people who have been Hicksville residents for a long time, who sort of said, we remember what Broadway used to be like. This is an older photo, but it had a scale, it had a feel that people identified as downtown. What's happened now is that after, in the mid-1960s, when 106 and 107 were widened, Broadway shrunk to the stores that remain on the east side. So yes, the stores are still there, and we heard these stores mentioned, but the width from one building front to the other building front is now 190 feet. That's wider than 6th Avenue in New York by quite some way. That's very hard to get these building sites to make it feel like it's a space of a street you want to be in. And you see this plan over here, which is showing these two intact blocks, not having another side to frame a space. This we heard a lot as well. This seemed to be one of the biggest issues, which is it's not safe. I don't feel comfortable walking around downtown. And why, to cross the road, do I feel like I'm taking my life at risk? So we saw this, you're all very familiar with this, more familiar than I am, which is in the evening commute. People are getting off the train and walking east to parking. And this crossing of Broadway here, this is not an ideal way to cross the street. Same thing for 106, for Newbridge. Here we see cars stopped, and there's only a pedestrian crossing on one side. So, big problem, and people realize it. Here's a plan just showing you that the continuity underneath here meets these obstacles, one after the other. 106, Jerusalem, Broadway. This we also heard from business owners, that none of the commuters, and it's the figure that we saw, was over a year, it's just under 3 million people that are passing through the station. These people are getting off the train, making a mad dash to their car, and leaving town. If some of the things we're proposing pan out, as I have every belief they will, these people are going to be enticed to spend time to eat, to be entertained, to work, and importantly, to live in downtown Hicksville. That combination will change this picture in major ways. And so this was the summary drawing that we've been using, which essentially sums things up. There are two aspects to it. One, decongest the center, and two, make a destination. Give downtown Hicksville the feeling that you've arrived at a place that you want to spend time in. So first, to deal with the traffic, because that seemed to be a major issue. There are three kinds of traffic that you see in Hicksville. The first kind is through traffic. Through traffic is the result of widening of these arteries and having people expect to race through downtown Hicksville. The second kind of traffic is the traffic of commuters that's going to and from the station. And the third kind of traffic, which we heard the most complaints about, is people driving locally, looking to negotiate downtown, find parking, do business that they have to do downtown. Now to start with the proposals. The first proposal as far as traffic goes is to enforce a downtown speed limit. There'll be no 40-mile-an-hour through traffic racing through Hicksville. And quite honestly, the only way to make pedestrians feel safe is to stop traffic. It's the only answer. So speed limits will be enforced, but traffic will stop at enhanced pedestrian crossings. So if we do nothing else in the immediate future, we're going to transform downtown from pedestrians feeling they're under assault to pedestrians, to cars feeling they have to make way for pedestrians. If you've seen this plan and seen some of our earlier proposals, a big part of this is to take the at-grade parking north of the station and propose that this be developed. So one of the things that's important is, as the improvements to the LIRR take place, the MTA is committed, in the light of having a larger number of commuters, to building structured parking north of the railway lines. We feel that that's very important, and what that's going to do is to move the sort of center of gravity of parking north of the railway tracks. The other thing that it's going to do is, including the MTA has proposed well over 1,000 paces. We're proposing to accommodate that. And that would free up land, which is now part of this blight, this downtowners parking, for new development. And what will happen is, as the traffic gets more organized, more structured, the opportunity will open up for real space, real pedestrian amenity, places where people want to spend time downtown. Okay, so this is a drawing summarizing the first idea. So you see 106 and 107, and these green areas, we won't get them all done immediately, but this is our hope, that every one of these pedestrian crossings become something in terms of the streets program that DOT has, in terms of the standard of lighting, standard of crosswalks, standard of signage, all that will be improved. The next thing is the series of structured parking that I talked about. So you see that the dark blue are the structures. And the structured parking north of the railway line will be thought of as being part of new development. So what you see in each case here, this color over here, is a mix of housing and retail. And so the new parking will serve the housing and retail and be part of this as a development. The other thing that we'll get to in a second is this idea of having this new population here and the entry to the station becoming very important. And what that means is that traffic, commuters that are heading to the station, are now going to come north from the LIE, from Northern Parkway, and connect John Street and Berkeley Street, which will take that traffic right to the station entry. So there's much less of driving around looking for a space, but much more concentrated, so the local loads are freed up for local people. Okay. What that does, as I said a moment ago, is it vastly increases the potential for public amenity, for public space, for landscape, for plaza, for all kinds of events and uses which will develop over time. This little piece of JFK Memorial Park is about just over 0.7 of an acre. What you're seeing here is about 5 acres. So we're increasing tremendously what the public space, and we'll go into detail in a second of what that space looks like, what it can do. The other thing is the road improvements. So what you see here is everything is connected. This is something that the local planning committee has really pushed us, the DRI has pushed us. We don't want to see isolated projects. We want to see projects that will help downtown Hicksville, and as the supervisor said, these things are going to build on each other and result in something really valuable at the end in terms of the changed identity of downtown. This, what you see here in the red, is the development sites that become available and become valuable precisely because of the public infrastructure investment. So these are properties that will now, on Berkeley Street, around the new station plaza, around the improved JFK Memorial Park, the proposed improvement of Nelson Avenue and Herzog Place, all these properties will benefit from these public investments. So what you see here is just over 1 million square feet of new development. And the idea here is, with the new development that will include parking, what you will get in downtown is this change scenario from somebody who's just coming to ride the train, coming into downtown Hicksville, parking leaving their car there the whole day, coming back in the evening, getting into their car and leaving. What we're trying to suggest here is that somebody who's living, who's shopping, who's eating at restaurants, who's working here, is going to park once and do all those various things. So it's a changed and transformed scenario. This is just an overall idea of districts that we presented to you before. So one of them is Berkeley, and we've sort of labeled this the Mta District because this is an important district in terms of the Mta being a partner to build some of the parking. But the private development will also benefit from that parking. So when I said earlier, this is mixed use surrounding Berkeley, restaurants and shops with housing above, they're also going to require parking, and that will be mixed into the structured parking. This is the Nelson Avenue district, and what we've highlighted is that this private sector initiative, which is part of the funding program, will be the catalyst, the first step that will make the improvement of Nelson Avenue something special. So this is momentum that's already got steam, already sort of getting into place. And this is Broadway. So what we're suggesting with Broadway is what I said earlier, all these crossings, very important that these completely change character. These start to feel like pedestrians are accommodated here, the crossings are enhanced, the lighting is enhanced, the signage is enhanced. And then to take where at least the edge of Broadway was, yes, having been widened, but now taking those pieces of land that are at the moment parking, strip parking in front of retail, and see these over time as really good development sites to take advantage of a re-envisioned Broadway. Okay, so the vision plan. So this is what you see in the model here. And just very quickly, we're proposing that the first steps be done in terms of the access and drop-off around the station. And we think that for two important reasons. One, it helps us organize the traffic so it functions more rationally. The flow is more smooth by getting commuters to one place to drop off, place where you can be covered from weather, where you can get into the station, and from being dropped off there, you have very easy access to the structured parking around there. So the idea that this becomes the major entry to the station. The other thing about this, why we think it's important, is it's the front door. It's your face to the outside world. We think that one of the blights, and I think I won't have much disagreement here, is the area around the station currently today. So this is a real opportunity to make a front door that you can be proud of, that people feel like is a place, an address in Hicksville that sort of doesn't feel like what I see when I get off the train is just sort of asphalt and parking. And so what this would look like potentially as developed. So here you see the entry, something important, we have a sculpture there, but that could be your eagle. And then you have a line here where people could drop off, they could go to parking, they could pick someone up. I heard the other day that Hicksville is actually the highest Uber use of any station in the LIRR system. They have plenty of space to collect people here, and while you're waiting for your Uber, you have seats, you have amenities. This could potentially be something combined with food trucks. So the area in front of the station becomes alive. And the idea is for an end, and the reason we chose this as an end is because this takes the start of the station plaza and the entry drive and connects all the public space so that finally, not finally, as the supervisor said, this is going to continue to go on. But at least in terms of the framework of this vision, you're going to get this area here that really is going to bring amenity to the city. So what you see here is the station plaza up here. What we're proposing is this becomes something we've called Festival Plaza. It's this sort of lineal thing, but what it's doing, which is very important, is it's taking people who are exiting the train and connecting them to Broadway. This is one of the real assets. When we started this project, we looked at several other towns in Long Island. One of the things that Hicksville has that a lot of towns don't have is that Broadway is very close to the train station. So to the degree that Broadway can be re-envisioned, you're connecting Broadway from exiting the train through Event Plaza, through JFK Park to Broadway. The other thing that you see here is potentially a farmer's market, potentially a crafts fair, but this becomes an area that is active. So that people getting off the train, local people, this is part of the activity of the town. It can take on different character as the seasons change. And we'll show you some other ideas that we're going to introduce about the way to deal with the underside of the railway line. And then you get to JFK Park, and what you're seeing here is a combination of a quiet sitting area, but on occasions you have a plaza here which allowed you to set up a bandstand, set up some kind of activity, and a large gathering space to have festivals and events in the town. Okay, so as you know, the DRI funding is this $10 million, $9.7 million. And what I would say, which is so important, and the supervisor and the rest of the local planning committee have emphasized to us over and over again, we don't want the money just to sit in one project. This money has to be a catalyst, as the supervisor said. It has to be part of other things. So it has to draw in private sector investment. It has to be timely, so the project can't just sit because it can't go. So we're looking at projects that could begin very soon, but also projects that would combine with public infrastructure investment so you get the best result from all of it. Okay, this is just a timeline. So this is exciting because this is going to happen quite soon. End of March is when we finish and the projects get submitted to the state. And then early summer, the awards will be made. The state does their own assessment and the awards will be made. And next winter, you're looking at change beginning. And in terms of what I said in the beginning, how long you've waited, to me this is quite exciting. That a realizable date, something real is going to happen. Okay, so this is a list of the projects, and I'm going to go through them. And again, on your comment sheet, as I go through them, by all means, feel free to make comments or afterwards to write comments on the sheets. So this is a list of projects that are results of the DRI funding. But remember what I said a moment ago, that these projects were specifically thought through as, is it affordable? Can it go immediately? Is it going to result in other kinds of investments? Those were the criteria that the committee wanted us to use, and that's what we've looked at. So it's the new station entry drive, new station plaza. We'll look at each one of these individually in a moment. Festival Plaza, the underline, 99 Hicksville Station Plaza, Trinity Lutheran Church Daycare, and a small business development fund. Then we have another category which is projects for other funding. So while this is going on and while those projects start, we were looking at also the complete street is the DOT idea that we were met with them. They're working on this now. They have a sort of standard for new crosswalks, new disability ramps, all this new lighting, all this kind of thing, and the town is going to work with them to see that these things are implemented. We've put West Berkeley here because West Berkeley depends a lot on private investment and the MTA. So it's going to be part of that. And again, the parking garages, which are also a part of that. And then going further along, and this is partly because how expensive these things were, again, how quickly it would be possible to get them implemented. So a lot of issues about acquiring land, seeing financing is in place, all these kind of things. But these are projects which are very real, but a little bit further down the road than the first projects you saw. So JFK Memorial Park expansion, the whole Nelson Avenue Street signage program, the High Line as a special attraction, and a downtown walking path. Okay, so now to take you through each one of the projects. As I said, we think that this entry drive to the station is very important for the two reasons I mentioned. It helps us resolve traffic on a larger scale by focusing the drop-off, and it also helps us say, this is the front door of Hicksville, it's important. Okay. And you see then each one of these, you see the project is listed. We've had these projects priced, and this would be the element, the piece of the $10 million that, at least where we are now, would be taken up by this project. And again, as I said earlier, I can't emphasize this enough. The idea behind these is, are they affordable within the larger schemes of things, and what are they going to lead to? Okay, so you see the cover, it's better that you look at the model here, because this covering would take you all the way to the station after, obviously, with inclement weather. But this is the idea of this drop-off, this landscape area, and this is with Barclay and John Street playing a much bigger role. Okay, this is the added station plaza, and this would start to make the station a real place. This is places for people to sit. There could be vendors there. This could be used for events. But it's the kind of space where, quite honestly, people who are getting off the train and getting as fast as they can away from the train to their cars are going to be enticed with something special. And this will be the beginning of the pedestrian connection to this walkway that eventually gets you to Broadway. This is the Festival Plaza that you saw a moment ago. So here's your station plaza. There's an enhanced crossing of 106. That means traffic lights. That means service on the road. That means instead of pushing this button and hoping the cross traffic is going to stop, there will be time in the traffic light for pedestrians to comfortably make this crossing and enter this plaza here. So this Festival Plaza is the next piece. Once this traffic is organized, then this becomes available for development. Becomes available for public space. This is something that the committee asked us to look at. This is something we'd mentioned earlier on, but hadn't done very much of it with it, is enhancing the space under the High Line. And we see a lot of potential here. At the moment, the space under the High Line is ghastly. There are a lot of good examples with a very light structure to the undersurface of where the rail is. You can very easily do artwork, you can do lighting, you can put seats there, and it starts to work with Festival Plaza. So this is a view where you see a farmer's market or a crafts market. People are walking along from the station plaza to JFK Park. This is signaling the crosswalk that what we're suggesting is, in the long term, to close the small section of Jerusalem Avenue there. So cars heading north would sort of go around it. But what this does is it gets you tremendous advantage for this continuous open space. And then what you see here is some idea of a grid of lighting. There are several ways to do this. Paint on the columns. So treating this as this feels like not this badly lit underside plaza, but something that's enhancing this whole public space. Okay, this is one of the projects that's ready to go. That, as I said a moment ago, we feel this is important. This is 99 Hicksville Station Plaza. So the railway line's just here. Here's 106. Here's Duffy that goes into Nelson Avenue. We think it's important to get this going, because this is a sign that the private sector is believing in what's being proposed in terms of public infrastructure. And they want to be part of it and are adding to this, which is going to be the first piece of Nelson Avenue. And sort of part of this, we're speaking to the city, will be what's necessary to solidify the new zoning and potentially design guidelines. So the city gets what they want. We've heard you all about small scale, about 4 stories. None of that's been forgotten. This is the kind of scale that we heard right at the beginning that people were interested in. This is one of the requests for the funding that was made, and the committee was very good about talking about this in terms of you need attractions. You know, what we heard from members of the committee, we want to keep young people in Hicksville. We want to find ways in which small businesses can start, where entrepreneurs can feel comfortable opening businesses here. And yes, it's a great commute. It's accessible to a lot of places. And part of this are needs like daycare. So this fits into the larger goal of the project. And then again, another request was for relatively not large amount for small business development. And again, the committee was very good with this. They said, we're not just handing the money out. This has to achieve benefit for the whole town. So the idea here is maybe a group of shops that helps improve the quality of a street. Maybe part of this money goes towards signage. So the idea of improving the environment of a street was coordinated signage, which was sort of something we heard from you guys, is something that would happen here. So that sort of covers the projects that we're proposing together with the committee that be recommended to be done. And now what I'm going to do is open the floor. I'm going to ask the Vice Chair of the Public Committee, Greg Carmen, to say a few words and get to hear your opinions. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. That was a great presentation and a great overview of what we're all doing here. Actually, this is the best crowd I think we've had, and it's great to see we had such a good turnout tonight. I've been asked to lead the public comment portion of this. Public comments would be best handled with not a question and answer, but we'd like to hear start with the residents of Hicksville, like, don't like, whatever it is they feel that they would care to share with the committee here tonight. And I'm going to open the floor up to who would like to go first. Joel, if we can wait. I'm going to bring the mic over. Yeah.
Good evening. I've lived in this community since I'm 3 years old, and since I turned 68 in January, that's 65 years. I remember the way it was. It's never going back. Millivolti Schultz isn't coming back. All these other places that we've had. So in looking at this project, and I've been through the Hicksville Hamlet plan, I've been through a number of things. You have projects here that are ready to go. And in looking at this, I've ascertained from the entire process that this is the first time that it looks like we're ready to do something. But there's always a but in there. I have to put the but in here. And since we have the elected officials here from the town government, some of the projects that are proposed here, the underline, the new station entry drive, the station plaza, and the festival plaza. Those are all on public properties. Now, I'm going to direct this to the supervisor because he's in charge of all of this. Having worked in town government before and having dealt with the MTA, the DOT, and the town, we need to do this from the get-go. Figure out who's going to maintain everything once it's constructed. Because the finger-pointing over the years has always gone on. Let's say, for argument's sake, the new station plaza. Who's going to shovel it when it snows? It all looks good when it's sitting there, but then the supervisor's office has to deal with the complaint that came in, and then all of a sudden the MTA turns around and says, no, it's not ours. I've dealt over the years with the old agreements for the parking lots. Most of these parking lots that the town maintains are actually on MTA property. Those agreements go back to the 60s, and they're very vague. And every time someone wanted to update it, someone would put their hand up, the MTA usually pulled back and said, no, we don't want to discuss that, because we don't want to be involved in the maintenance. So I think once it's built, because it all looks good on paper, once it's up and running, it needs to be maintained. And if you guys could work it out ahead of time between the state, the MTA, and the town as to whose responsibility it is, it makes it a lot easier for local government to deal with it after the fact, because everybody will be on board. That's basically my only comment. But I think we have an opportunity here with some real money on the table for the first time, real money on the table to move forward with something. And this isn't for me, because at 68, I'm not going to be around forever. This is for future generations, and I would like to be able to say that we pass something on to the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you. And at 68, we hope you are around for a while still. We want to actually, the point you make are very, very good. Thank you. We want to hear some more opinions, comments on the different proposals that are going on here. Sir, come on up.
Yeah, just a question. I think everyone can hear me. As you're aware, Sears is closing down. They're going to be developing that whole area there with small businesses, residential, etc. It sounds almost like it's going to be competing with what we're trying to do here. And I'm just concerned if we don't coordinate with the two, we may just wind up with a mess altogether.
I'll just respond to that in that the town is very much aware that there are different competing projects out here, but we'd like to limit the comments here tonight directly to this project and the proposals that are being made, being entertained by the committee, because the town is charged with making recommendations to the state. But we are very much aware of the other projects that are out there and how they may impact this.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, some of the concerns, because a lot of people have expressed a concern on that. Ultimately, the town will be able to approve or deny whatever is proposed at the Sears property. So we're very cognizant of that. We will be very cognizant throughout the entire process. And the last thing, this is our administration's first major project town-wide. So the last thing we're going to let happen is to destroy Hicksville. We're very cognizant of it. We're keeping this on the radar. We're not forgetting these other projects, and we'll move forward very cautiously. And this process proves that we will continue to listen to the public. And if I may just answer, Richard brought up a point. Just so you know, thanks to the process that Governor Cuomo and the Department of State and others have put in for this DRI process, part of it is to negotiate throughout with the MTA and with others to make sure that we address all the concerns. We've got a great team of people who will be negotiating for you, the residents, to make sure that everything is addressed. And I'm a stickler for details. And you're right. The first snow, it would be disastrous if it wasn't maintained. So this process has parameters by which to follow to make sure that all of these agreements are in place that address all those issues.
Anyone else want to make any comments with regard to the different projects, programs? Joel?
All right. Hello, everybody. I know I've spoken to a great many of you about many things, and I just had one suggestion that I wish I would have said a long time ago, is that I think at these meetings there should have been stenographic services to make an official record of everything that's been said, instead of Cecil having to drive himself crazy scribbling. I think that would have been very helpful. So, okay. What I am worried is, as this project is done, a lot of the ideas are really good, but the central location that was originally intended was Broadway for our downtown, and the experts have now relocated it to the train station to be the prime and first area. And what I'm worried is that we're going to have a copy of the 70s and moving forward in Atlantic City, where they developed all the casinos, they promised to revitalize the whole city, and they only went one block, and then as developers either just stayed in that area, it never happened, and then as the casinos closed later, the city got even more blighted. Another point is that for years, during all these plans, I have tried to get us to do an intermodal to get the buses off New Bridge Road and make it safer. If they're talking about making all these garages, there's been no mention of an intermodal garage like the one in Mineola that took the buses out of traffic and made it much safer for the people going to and from them. The other thing is they casually mentioned Broadway, and it seems to be like an afterthought, especially with the comment saying that they really couldn't make it back into a downtown too easily because it's 190 feet across between buildings. West John Street has not had any specific plans, and it's barely mentioned under the saying that it's going to take a lot of the traffic at the station along with West Barclay. And West John Street should be in those through street applications. As far as the underline was concerned, I have been participating with the MTA Long Island Railroad in all their revitalization proposals up until the one that they're doing now to revitalize the station. And underneath the trestle, they have rejected every time to put lighting in that walking area going from the last stairway out to 107. So that would be something to negotiate with them, like Rich said about organizing between the levels, I guess, of governmental agencies. I also know that it's been expressed by several people, and nobody's said it publicly at these meetings, that New York State conducted brownfield studies. There was a level 2 in Hicksville Gardens, and there was a level 1 completed in Northwest Civic, and then the money dried up and they were never completed. So it's got concern that at some point that New York State's going to complete this, it would stop and not move further. And I know some of these concerns are my own and some of the other people out there, and I'd like to hear other people with similar things that live in Hicksville. All right, thank you.
Joel, just for the record, that every one of these meetings has been videotaped or recorded, and the transcripts are available on the town website. So we save the cost of the stenographer, which is good for all of us, all right? Good for the taxpayers. Are there any other Hicksville residents that have any comments, want to speak on this? Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Yeah, I just want to say that I live in Hicksville 40-something years, and my daughter lives in Hicksville now, and my grandchildren also live in Hicksville. And I think we have...
Can everybody hear her?
Yes. We have to start somewhere.
Why don't you come up here?
Sure. I'm not much of a speaker.
You're doing very well. You're doing very well.
Oh, thank you. I think we have to start somewhere, and that with every project, you can think of a future problem that might come up. But this seems to be a real start for Hicksville, and as a resident, I'd love to see my grandchildren have a place to walk, a bench to sit on, a street that's safe to cross, something under the train that isn't horrible, a restaurant to go eat at. And I think, we can always come up with something. But what about this? But what about... I think this is a great start, and I feel very positive about it.
Thank you. I think we all feel very positive about this. It's a great opportunity. And as the supervisor said earlier, it's through the efforts of many of the people in this room, the Hicksville community, who have invested so many years in the planning and the talking about what can we do, that we're actually here at this point. And next speaker.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond directly to you, Joel, for a moment. Can I have the presentation for a second? Go back to the slide. I am right. I am a member of the LPC. I've been involved since the September. So Joel, one of the things that you said that I found kind of concerning that I just wanted to directly refute, because I know that you care, me and Lionel both love you very much for that reason, is this. So here's what you see. I'll get out of the way of the light. I know I'm huge. I'm sorry. So going from up here by the train station plaza, you can see that this marries everything that's going to go on there to Broadway. It's all part of the same thing. We want to funnel people in through here. This is where I want to walk my 7-year-old. This is where I want to shop. This is where I want to go to concerts. Where I want food trucks. I like food trucks, in case you can't tell. This is part of it. It doesn't exclude it at all. Not the intention. The park gets more awesome. The whole Festival Plaza in between, as the connection, this is the connective tissue. These are tendons that make Broadway an opportunity. Far from forgetting it. I would not have been okay with that. I would never have voted for something like that. But this is a complete picture. So I just wanted to make sure that was super duper known.
Thank you for your super duper comment, Brian. This meeting and every meeting, we are very much appreciated. Yes, ma'am, come on up. Yes, you have to get up before the crowd.
Hello everyone, my name is Mta. I own a company by the name of New York State Sustainable. This is not a plug. The reason my question is, what are we doing with this project in regards to energy conservation, if there is any?
This is more about statements. Is this conceptual plan? What we're doing here is more about concepts and the plans of what we're doing here with the different projects we're going to select.
It's more green space.
It's more green space. Is a fair comment on Ryan over here?
Greg, if I could also just add to that. So we'll be working with any developer who would like to come in and build. Through that process, we can put certain things with the guidelines from the state, because the state of New York has for many years, and our state assemblyman Michael Montesano can underscore this, that we've been working on they have been working on legislation for years in Albany to promote green technologies and green energies. And going forward, this evolution allows the town to insist upon different levels and different goals in green technologies. So as we build solar energy panels, rain collection that waters, all fabulous opportunity to take the reins off and go full throttle in all these different initiatives, including those that help our environment and that progress in a green way.
Which is the reason why I brought it up, that it only makes sense.
It makes
Accelerator crazy. You at most might save 15 seconds off of your trip, and it actually increases the risk of accidents and pedestrian fatalities. We want it slower. It's way more efficient. That Vision Zero initiative in New York City has already shown that.
That responds to the current condition, but how about, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but what if you do seal off of Jerusalem Avenue?
We're talking about adding options that are more efficient and safer for both the cars and the pedestrians. It's not about one or the other. You know, I take Jerusalem Avenue when I want to cut through the 106, 107 traffic when I'm late for picking up my son. I'm one of those people who, when it goes from 2 lanes to 1 lane right after the Old Country Road, that I'm jockeying for position in front of somebody too to make sure that I can get to that light through the park, to make sure I can get to Woodbury Road before the next red that feels like 10 minutes. I know, but it can be better, and that's part of this plan.
Ryan, you do let the lady in front of you go first, right? Does anyone else have comments about the projects that we're entertaining, recommending to the state? Sir, in the back?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Firester. I'm First Vice President of Hicksville Garden Civic Association. I'm pretty much a lifelong resident of Hicksville. So I want to start off by saying, in terms of the project, I love the vision of what the long-term view is. So I thank everyone involved in the committee for working on this. That said, as a commuter who currently shows up at the station at 7 o'clock in the morning, else I have no chance of getting a spot to park at, I would urge our government officials that as we're going through this transformation process, please keep in mind that the current parking situation is painful, and I would beg and plead that you ensure that throughout this transformation process, we preserve at least the same number of spots that we have now, as we've seen throughout these gorgeous renderings and pictures, that all of these transformations involve spaces being removed from the current surface parking area, which, fine, I'm totally in support of that, but we got to park somewhere along the way. So that's my comment. Other than that, I'm fully supportive. I think this is a great step for us as residents of Hicksville. So thank you.
You can be assured that that has been one of the topics of conversation that we've had as we look at how you're going to timeline the development of different aspects of the downtown area over there. Any other comments here this evening? Sir?
Yeah,
You'd have to speak very loud or come up here and use the mic.
I can speak very loud.
Yeah, so my main concern is that there is no way, and don't get me wrong, I love this whole proposal. I love the idea, and I hope that it happens. But my biggest concern is probably with most of the people in here is that what are they going to do with the existing traffic? And it all sounds to me, I might be very negative, it sounds like pie in the sky. Because if you're going to make, and I know you're going to have, people are going to slow down and they're not going to want to drive through Hicksville, people still have to get from point A to point B. And what are you going to do? You're going to put more traffic on West John Street. You're going to put more traffic on Woodbury Road. I don't see what the total plan is. I see they're adding more and more people. And don't tell me that by adding more and more people, there's going to be less traffic. That's baloney. I don't buy it. This project has to be, I don't know if it's that well thought out, because the town has other plans for warehouses down on West John Street, bus parking, school bus parking on West John Street. Where is all this traffic going to go? And that's just my opinion, question, whatever. Thank you.
Any other comments? Do you agree with them? Okay, we're going to be sensitive to all of that. This is a concept. It's a growth around the train station, and the town's going to control the development of that growth. They get to oversee it. They get to take a look at each project as the developers come in and manage how the development happens. And you'll have an opportunity as members of the public to have input on that part of the process. Yeah?
I'm Italian, I'm loud enough.
Yeah? Let's see.
My one thing that I was thinking about, I like the plan.
You have to speak louder.
I'm concerned about the buildings that will be going up. Whether or not they would receive a tax abatement, because then they wouldn't be on the tax roll and we want to get the money. So I don't know if there are things that thought about in that direction yet, or if you're taking it as case by case.
Those topics or questions will be addressed down the road. Tonight's focus here is on the proposals that the committee is going to make to the state and how we're going to spend the $9.7 million, and ask the governor's staff to approve the projects that we think would get this off the ground. And that's really what this is all about tonight.
If I could just add to that,
Sure.
It's important for you to know that that's not falling on deaf ears. This subject has come up in our meetings and discussions. We realize the balance that's going on here, whether it's about what happens with parking, whether it's about traffic issues, whether it's about the revenue. Anytime you make a decision to do it properly, you have to consider what the ramifications are. So when I hear it phrased, have you considered? The answer is yes. We're working with experts who have done these projects throughout the state to get their input. We have people with all kinds of expertise, from construction to the financial end. So the answer to your question specifically is yes. We are considering the ramifications with each decision that's being made so we don't mess it up.
And there's no reason not to ask the questions as we go along through the process, just in case we didn't think about it. All right? But we are dealing with experts with a huge amount of experience, and that's what it's all about. But tonight, we're focusing on, fundamentally, on the projects that we're going to recommend to the state from this committee. Anyone else want to speak?
I have a question as opposed to making a statement. I noticed in that green where you were saying the Triangle Park, it was going all the way up to Sackett Street. On the way, it's like a little neighborhood on the way to Broadway Mall. It looked like that was enclosed in that green.
Those are conceptual designs.
That's Jerusalem.
Jim?
It would end the point of the triangle where it is now. It would stay exactly the same. It got bigger by coming further down, closer to Herzog Street. So where it ends up north is exactly where it would stay.
So where does it end up north?
Exactly where it is.
Right, exactly where it is right now. Right by the
Sackett Street is right.
Right, exactly.
So that's not part of the plan, Sackett?
No, nope. The tip would say, the triangle would stay exactly how it is now, JFK Park. It would just come a little bit further down. Technically it ends over here now. We would encompass more of it here, filling in one of the existing parking lots.
If you go online and look at the map, Sackett is included in one of the plans
We'll
online.
take a look to make sure it's not drawn in for any confusion.
It's getting late. Sir?
I have a comment about some of the visuals that we have here. This display does not have any of the street names on it, so it's hard to picture, where everything is orientated on this map or in the drawings that are here. So I was hoping if we could have these plans available online with the street names, so we can see and visualize, like that big white building back there. I don't know what that is right there. FedEx building. Okay. Yeah, so it's hard to tell. It's just that would be one observation. And as the other lady pointed out, yes, the map does cover Sackett Street. And I was just wondering, well, there's. Yeah, well, I'm just saying. Yeah, but it's.
No, it isn't.
I know, you're across from me, so I know. But that's the one that is on the website. That's the one answer.
Thank you. You have to come up. They'll throw tomatoes at you otherwise. There you go.
I'm also on West John Street, 45 West, and I'm a CPA. And a lot of my clients tell me that the Hicksville town is quite business unfriendly. I mean, we have mostly residential people over here. I actually live out of, not in Hicksville, but I work in Hicksville. So I want to know a couple of things. Like, for example, we are saying that this will go on to Herzog Street. What happens to the businesses that are going to be between the train station, the train tracks and Herzog Street? Are they going to be demolished or what? The other thing is that will the town be making extra effort in expediting all the business applications or the improvement applications, etc.? What are they doing about it? I mean, there's always this, complaints from my own business clients that the town is very unfriendly towards business.
Commissioner Macaron still here? You want to come up and share how friendly the building department has become in the past year since you've taken the helm?
Also, don't forget, what's what's gonna happen with the existing businesses that are there?
As the downtown is redeveloped, we would envision that some of these buildings will get taken down, new buildings will go up, and businesses will get relocated. Commissioner?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. This past year, we've spent a lot of time rebuilding the building department. Some of you have seen the supervisor and other council people at some of the other functions and so forth. Besides streamlining the process, we've added people to the department, but the main thing is we've been working on same-date permits and so forth. In terms, and that's for residential and also some same-day permits. In terms of this project, obviously a lot has been put into this whole process, from the visioning, which will then move into the zoning implementation of the new zoning changes, and then it will be the building construction. We will be fast-tracking the projects in this downtown Hicksville area. Most of our commercial properties right now, if it's a permitted use, and someone files their building permit, and they've had all their site plan approvals already, we can issue a building permit right now for a major construction, commercial building within 3 to 4 weeks, and that's based upon revisions going back and forth with the architect. So we have streamlined the process. We meet with the architects ahead of time so that we can, when applications are submitted, the plans that are submitted to us are about 90%, and our plan examiners can review them. So getting back to your question, we have turned the table on reviewing plans and so forth, and we are going to be committed to this project fully.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's been a focus of the Saladino administration to really streamline the building department. It is completely different than what it was a year ago. And we enjoy that phrase, same-day permits, because I'm an attorney from the private sector, and I know how difficult it was to deal with the building department representing clients. And that was one of the things that Supervisor Saladino and I spoke about. We said we had to focus on this. And that's why we brought Leslie Macaron back actually brought her into the chair of being the commissioner of that department. She was the right person. She's done a tremendous job with her deputy, Tim Zeich, and the rest of the staff in the building department. It's friendly, and they're there to help. So anyone who has an interest in seeing development happen on their own part, we're there to work with you. All right? So it's almost 8:30. Which lady in the back? Okay. Your neighbor picked you, so you get to come up to the front.
Hello, everyone. I'm a student from LAU Post. I'm actually here as part of my class today. One of my questions actually is regarding green spaces, and whether the amount of green space is being reduced or increased, and what kind of green spaces it's going to be. Because grass doesn't quite do the same thing as a tree does, or with regards to oxygen production, the amount of carbon dioxide they suck in, and what kind of amenities they provide for the public. And I'm just curious as to what the development plans are for that.
Cecil?
So the green spaces, as I mentioned in the presentation, what JFK Park is today is about 0.7 of an acre. What you're looking at in terms of the whole of Station Plaza, Festival Plaza, improved JFK Park is close to 5 acres. In terms of your question about finishes, when this starts to get into detail, again, we will come to the town. We will see the best uses. I mean, it's not us or whoever you hire will make the decision. If there's a strong desire for pleasant, quiet, shaded areas, that will drive the thing in one direction. If there's a strong desire to have events, to have possibilities of people gathering, to have music festivals, that will drive the treatment of the plaza in another direction. So it's one of the further iterations that once you agree on the park, then how you treat it in detail will play itself out.
Come on up. I'll take one more after him.
Thanks. I'm a resident here in Hicksville for a couple of years. I only have one question regarding the scale of these buildings. On the previous map, can I just forward it? Right here, these buildings look kind of awfully big, and I'm just worried about the traffic and how much of an impact it's going to be. I know it's not near this area, but it's more narrow in that particular area. So my concern is that, yes, there's an open space here, but would this have much of an impact on this narrow street further up, that way over there?
Jim, you want to address this?
I think it's just the rendering that's throwing you off. Their plans are for 3- and 4-story buildings. If you look at the other boxes over there, that could be the size, which is like a FedEx building, which is 3 and 4 stories. It's just the rendering that's throwing you off. Those aren't the actual to scale sizes. The plan would be retail on the first floor, and then maybe up to 3 levels of apartment above. Right, the parking. Around the parking, maybe wrapping the parking.
The parking garages are going to be surrounded, actually bordered with buildings, with resident, retail, mixed use, apartments on top. So the original concept was to build 1 or 2 parking structures. We've been in discussions with the MTA to build 4 smaller parking structures. And then what you do is you wrap, so instead of looking at parking garages, you wrap those with retail buildings, mixed-use buildings, so you don't really see the parking garages. On the street, you just see, apartments and stores and a downtown feel and look.
Okay, another question about the Festival Plaza area. Where are those people who are going to go to this concert?
She's asking a question about Festival Plaza and where will the people park when they want to come down to go to a concert. Conceptually, the parking garages have a different use after the commuters have gone home. All right, so when the commuters come back from the city going to work, then these parking garages open up and they would have a downtown use or on a weekend. When the commuters aren't using the garages to the same extent as they are during the week, the garages would be open for the community.
Because that Hicksville train station parking lot is filled all the time.
We understand, but you won't have surface level parking anymore the way we've all come to get used to. They're going to be garages. They'll be stacked.
So the bigger they are, the more.
You say you have the same number of people. You're just going to stack the cars instead of having the way that the current concept is being thought on is that the parking garages will add a net of 900 parking spaces to the Hicksville downtown area. So it's 900 on a commuter end. But they're going to be stacked.
And also, they're not going to be ugly. The whole idea is that normally, and what I was concerned about as far as beautifying the area as well, Cecil and HKS have assured us that they don't want to make the parking structures boxy, ugly things that turns it into an awful thing to look at. So the plans specifically include that the garages are going to surround these spaces. It's going to be built in with rounded corners in certain spots and be architecturally significant, creating more personality. The MTA even expressed willingness, potentially, that they expressed that it's going to be more expensive to do it that way, but they agree that it's what's best for us as a community.
It's more expensive to build 4 small garages than 2 big ones. So, again, it comes back to the approval process through the town and the town's management of it. As a developer wants to come in and approve a piece of property, they're going to make their presentation on what they would like to build, And then the town is going to have input, listening to the residents, and saying, well, we want to see something different. We want to see something with more of a theme. We see the downtown area looks like X. We want to see it continue to look like X. We don't want to see something that's completely different and out of sync with the community. So all the things that we'll be working on and paying very close attention to as this project moves along. Anyone else have a question or comments about the proposals? Sir? That's premature, Joe. It's,
Just a quick question. Previous parking was what, 1,000 spaces? Yeah, what do they have now?
On Duffy Avenue?
Yeah.
Now 1,400 there.
Now you reduce the parking?
No, Duffy Avenue is totally separate. The Duffy Avenue parking garage is remaining. We're talking about building new additional structures.
All right, I put,
No, Duffy Avenue is
so
still
you'll
right
be
here.
increasing the parking?
What we're taking is surface parking. We're going to be building parking garages on the existing surface parking. So by doing that, we'll be able to increase the parking.
All right, that's just a quick question.
Yeah. No, so we'll still have...
overall, there'll be almost 1,000 more parking spots by building on the town lots. Creating garages on the surface parking on the town lots.
Right, we'll be taking some of the spots away by building Station Plaza and Festival Plaza, but we'll still have a net gain over what's existing now.
Then you're going to charge for parking.
I just want to point out just a couple of things. First of all, if anybody, there's a lot of questions that people have. Please call my office. We'll get you on the phone, the Town of Oyster Bay. We'll get you on the phone with Jim McCaffrey, with the Commissioner of the Building Department. We will get your questions answered because there's still a lot of questions. But before we leave tonight, an important part of this process is to find out what your feelings are and what your desires are and what your priorities are on these proposals. We have that deadline coming up. I believe it's the 31st of March. So we want to build what you want. So in terms of answering your questions, we're happy to do that. And we're happy to continue to leave the lines of communications open. Quite frankly, it's essential to keep the lines of communication open so people's questions can be answered, their fears can be allayed, you can understand where this is going. But before you leave tonight, give us some input. We do want to hear the new Long Island Railroad entry drive. What are your feelings about the importance of that? How do you feel about the new Station Plaza, the underline? What are you thinking about that 99 Hicksville Station Plaza? What do you think about grants to businesses to put up new facades on some of the aging facades? What is important to you? We heard some issues about green technology. Well, one thing I can assure you, because when I was a state assemblyman, I worked with Michael Montesano on establishing what those green technologies have to be. We mentioned solar energy on the buildings, rain collection. We didn't fully talk about how many trees can be planted throughout all of these walking spaces to increase the green footprint. LED lighting, that's a must. It uses only 1/10 of the electric energy needed as compared to incandescent lighting. 1/10, a 90% savings in energy. So if we change the look and feel and the use of the underline to make public space with pavers and trees and benches, to expand upon the walkway, to give a flow to walking. And the more attractive it is to walk there, the less you'll use your car. The increase in parking, how that all comes together. Let's use some of this time tonight. We can answer questions. You can call my office. We'll put you in touch to get those questions answered. But we really want to know how you feel about some of these projects. Please, Supervisor, put the money into a new way to drop people off. It's called kiss and go, I believe is the phrase I learned for this design technology, the kiss and go, meaning how you drop someone off at the railroad station. And I'm not sure what it's going to be, what the phrase will be for picking them up. Maybe it'll be more than a kiss, I'm not sure. But we want to know which projects are your priority. You have the most experience. You've been living in Hicksville. You've been doing business here. You've been using the railroad station. So let's use a little time. I'll stay as late as you want. If it's midnight, whatever it is, I'll stay here. This is very important to you and to us. Please, come on up.
On the south drop-off where Dunkin' Donuts is, at the train station. You know where Dunkin' Donuts is? Yeah. Okay. You can drop people off right there. The ticket office is there. Is that going to be closed, that street? So when they go around the underpass where the Eagle is now to go out on Barkley to exit.
It'll bring you back into the alleyway which runs behind the parking garage.
It's going to bring you back that way that you have to exit?
That's currently how you, right now, if you came in that way, now you go under the underpass.
Right, and then you go out to Barkley.
You're onto Barkley, right.
And you
can go out any of these spaces in between the parking garage. It'll bring you out here, you can go right out here to Barkley and back out. You can go up to West John, however way you want to go out.
So that still will be open,
That'll be open.
that underneath? Okay, I mean, this drop-off point that I see here, the congestion and when you drop people off, yeah, that loop is, they're gonna have to really get out of that car fast. They're gonna not even kiss, they're gonna just have to go.
It's a concept design. He's going to kick him out, right?
It's a lot longer than it is now because, remember, Station Entry Drive is going to start up at West John and come down, where now it's just Barkley, so you're really doubling the space of the driveway as well. The queuing will be here, and you'll be coming up here, yep? So it'll be much longer.
Other questions, comments? Sir?
I have some question and a comment. Can anybody hear me?
Bessie, come on up.
I'm asking for some clarification, perhaps. One of the major things that everybody asked for in this project is something to do with the traffic. Is that right, folks?
Yeah.
Okay. The next thing I have to say is adding 1,000 more spaces for cars, which will be coming, let's say, between 8 and 10 in the morning, and maybe between 4 and 6 in the afternoon. How is that going to do anything for traffic other than to increase it? Am I missing something? Oh.
You can ask the questions, and we'll try and do our best to answer them for you. Is that you going? Well, do you have other questions or comments?
No, that's it. I'm just wondering if I'm missing something about another 1,000 cars coming in.
There are traffic studies that are going to go on throughout the course of this project. We know that we're bringing more vehicles in, but at the same time, this design is focused on reducing the number of vehicles for the people that live in the area. But as the project evolves, there will be continued traffic studies where warranted to make sure that managing it as best that you can with a development like this. There's a gentleman over here. Actually,
see, the way that I can speak loud enough. The way that the drop-off is, that means that the Wyckoff Street in front of it would be a two-way street, because right now it's one way.
Yes.
okay. Yes. Why don't you come up so they can hear you?
To answer your question of what is important to everybody here on all these proposals, I'm pretty sure I can tell you that every one of these is important. Every one. And that's where, I hate to say it again, that's where the skepticism comes in. Because we're all experienced with what's been going on, and I understand this is a new this is a new regime. I hate to use the word regime. A new administration. Thank you. And that, so the whole thing is that this is, everything here is very important. We would all love to see all this come true, come to fruition. We would love that. I'm positive everybody in here. It's just that myself, I have my doubts, and I don't know who I can hold accountable when this falls on its face. I hope it doesn't happen, and I don't want to be the one to say, not that it makes any difference, I told you so. Because this is, everybody here, I think, I'm going to presume, feels the same way. Thank you.
No.
Anthony McEnroe. He's up for re-election. He's up for cell phone number out to everyone.
We all have it already. I'll give it to him again.
Seriously. But I understand those feelings. I understand the feelings so many people in this room have been having. I remember when I started here as supervisor a year ago. Do you remember the meeting in the high school? Yeah. You remember the consternation, the stress? Remember what we were feeling? So through that, right, people were quite upset. Upset about waiting, upset about questions not being answered, upset about the stress and probably just driving there that night. Getting stuck in traffic. It was a rainy night, right? So now we have some top people to work with. Through this program, the state has afforded us some of the best experts, not only in the New York metropolitan area, but in the world. One of the people we're working with through this whole process is in India right now, helping them. So they're really top flight people. When you want the omelet, you got to break the eggs. So now we want to work with you to do it right the first time. We do realize to become the popular downtown means more people are going to come here. Ask the folks who live in Farmingdale. It's a tremendous destination. It's very popular. Ask the people who live in Patchogue. It's very popular. Everybody wants to go there at night for dinner. We have a great opportunity here, and we're working with these experts to do it right and alleviate some of the problems. We're going to try to alleviate all of the problems, but we need your input. That deadline is going to come up very quickly at the end of this month. And $10 million only gets you so far, as we've learned through this process. So yes, we are talking about traffic at every step of this way. And we do have some ideas we've been getting on how to alleviate some of that problem. And we are thinking about what the ramifications are as we move each piece forward to make sure that we don't create a bigger problem by going in a direction that was not wise. So we have some of these projects, and we have that almost $10 million to work with now, and we're trying to look at projects, especially for public grounds. Because in the private ground areas, the developers will pay for the majority of those projects. But some of the reason why we're leaning toward the public spaces is because those are areas that the private developers don't get a return, so they don't want to build parks and public spaces. That's where the thinking is going. And then as we go toward like a West Barclay, where the developers want to build, they'll get the opportunity to build stores, restaurants, and housing, but they'll also pay for the parking that you'll utilize. So that's where the strategy comes in on how to decide what's the best way on the short term and the long term simultaneously on how to spend that money. So if we can just get a little more feedback on that entryway, because I came up with a question just like you are. If that area of the Long Island, the new Long Island Railroad entry has an overload, where are we designing the spillover area? Right? We fill that up, let's say it's St. Patrick's Day, Columbus Day, whatever it is, everybody's using the railroad station, and we need a spillover area. Where will those cars spill over to? Or the Uber cabs are lined up? Or
The entry drive is mostly for, like we say, the kiss and drop. Anyone that's going to be parking, which a lot of the people that are still using the station are parking, they're going to be coming down West John and down one of the separate drives. Not everyone has to come into Station Entry Drive. That's for mainly traffic circulation to come in and move back out. On the plans you'll see, you can come down West John and come down here to access the parking garages from the back alleyway. So there's also discussion where we came up with buses. We are looking at that. We may be able to put buses along here. This is all things that we still have to refine, the little parts. But not everybody's going to be coming down Station Entry Drive. There are other accesses if you want to just park.
The nice green area where Kennedy Park is, across the street on Broadway, is that disgusting building on the corner. That used to be the professional building that's vacant and it's disgusting. So you can have this really nice green, beautiful area.
What you see west of Broadway is long-term, really long-term.
We'll address that right now.
To be honest with you, you're bringing all this money in and all this development, it's like an incubator. That building, somebody's going to want to buy that property and turn it into something beautiful that they're going to make money on. All right, so it's going to just make it much nicer eventually, and the whole area, and it'll spread, similar to Farmdale, Patchogue, Mineola, other areas along Island.
There are.
I don't know. That I can't answer.
Hold on a second.
Because it used to be.
I don't want to interrupt you, but we already have an answer for that. Leslie can explain to you. There's already plans in. She can give you a little bit more information.
That application was submitted to the department and we've reviewed it. The developer of the property is going to rehab that building. It will be retail on the first floor with apartments above. They meet all the parking requirements, landscaping.
Where was that property? Can't hear.
The old American Dental Building.
Right. Broadway. Right. So that application has been reviewed and has been approved.
So you have it already. I was didn't mind it.
Many years ago, right. It'll be all new facades, all new parking lot, landscaping around the perimeter. And it's already been the catalyst for the project. So, and it's something that we've reviewed through the department, and it's ready to go.
That's the first one on, and the other one right behind it will be the Chroma Paint site right here. They're finalizing their final design, and that is maybe a month out from being submitted to planning and development. So the first two, within a month from now, the first two will already start development.
If I could please just make a few quick general comments. There's been a theme of some of the questions that I feel like downtown Hicksville is already congested. Our traffic is really at peak. How are you going to introduce more development? I just want to sort of make a few comments from other projects I've seen, other projects I've worked on. What you have to do is look at the existing situation, the situation that you see today, and ask yourself the question, who benefits from that? Who can drive at some distance from Hicksville, come to downtown here, and expect to have a parking available to them? You know, if that's the status quo and that stays unchanged, then the value of that land around the station will get no higher than a parking use. But if, as we're proposing, that land starts to become really valuable with infrastructure that's amenities, not for people who are driving from Port Jefferson to take advantage of the quick trip to Manhattan from Hicksville, but the residents of Hicksville that will be able to reclaim that space and see real development there, then you will get the drastic change. And guess what? The people who are driving from a long distance to use the Hicksville station will start to get inconvenienced. Their parking will cost a little more. And this will benefit the people in Hicksville, because you'll have public spaces, thriving businesses, and yes, people who have up to this point had this comfortable status quo will now have to use Hicksville a little differently. Will want to use Hicksville a little differently. Okay.
Thanks, Lisa. Hold on. Gentleman in the back. No, he raised his hand. He was so polite. You got to come forward, though. He's much prettier than you, anyway.
So a big concern that I've seen brought up is first of all, the traffic, of course, but also the sustainability aspect, the energy aspect of things. And I feel like public transit system is something that needs to be really addressed, especially with buses, in regards to, are we adding new bus stops to the new plaza? Are we doing that kind of thing to help take cars off the streets and encourage public transportation?
You hear the question? He asked whether we're adding new buses and other types of transportation over in the area here. Cecil?
Yeah. I mean, the answer to that is what I was saying a moment ago. That if it inconveniences people to come from a long distance and park to Hicksville, there'll be a demand for other kinds of transportation. And when that demand builds, it'll pay for itself. At the moment, people have the luxury of getting into their car some distance away, driving here, and expect to find parking. So as long as that is the situation, there won't be a demand for public transport to increase. Thank you.
And also, as we go on with this, we will be looking for other funding sources through the Long Island Regional Economic Development Council, and one of those could be rapid transit buses up and down 106 and 107 to take some of the traffic away, maybe help some of the students getting up to the universities, and also employers that want to get down to the Bethpage Business Park. So that will be one of the applications we'll probably be putting in for funding. You see it out on in Suffolk County, out on 112, on William Floyd. That's something we're looking to do, and if the numbers work, that may actually reduce the traffic that's actually on 106 and 107 now. And just before we go to another question, I just wanted to clarify one other point we had before while we still had our members from the state here. Regarding the brownfield plans, the state didn't abandon us. It is a three-step process, and we're about a month away from submitting our final application up to the state to be nominated. So I didn't want anyone to think that they forgot about us. And probably in about a month we'll send that application up, and then we'll qualify for the next round, which will open up a whole other set of funding for us in this area. We can use that money for a lot of great things.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to just address George's concerns. Hicksville's been screwed up for 50 years. They've been screwing it up, the town. We're a big community. We're probably the largest community in town of Oyster Bay. These guys are in trouble if we don't get what we want. We have a committee that's done a great job getting all this accomplished, finally, after 50 years. I live in 61 years on Saturday, my birthday. 61 years in Hicksville. My aunt, 90 years in Hicksville. Okay? This town has been screwed up by the town of Oyster Bay all these years. The dumping ground. That's all we've been hearing about Hicksville, the dumping ground. Now we have a committee that's done a great job, that's going to hold their feet to the fire. And that's all we can hope for. So, on the flip side of the coin, George.
I've learned a lot through this process as somebody from outside of Hicksville. And one of the things, now listen, the town of Oyster Bay is in partnership with the hamlet of Hicksville to make this happen. But what I learned early on was it wasn't the town that came in and cut Hicksville in half. It was the state when they came in and widened the roads. The town views Hicksville as a very, very important hamlet, as it does every other hamlet within the town of Oyster Bay. We view Oyster Bay as a family, and we are here and committed to seeing this process work and working with the residents of Hicksville here who have devoted so much of their time and years in the planning here. It's this administration that made the difference in getting the grant this year, the $10 million from Governor Cuomo to get this off the ground. They wouldn't do it before. They turned us down. We came in not in first place. So it was with the supervisor's commitment to this project and seeing this happen that we're in a different spot. And it's good to have all of you come out here and speak so passionately about your feelings about where we all are here. And yes, this administration is accountable to doing its part, to working with all of you, to making this happen. And that's a pledge that I know I can make on behalf of the supervisor and all the members of the town board.
I'm sorry to drag this out, but in the past, that's what I said, in the past, the town screwed it up by, there's a building that they wanted to build it on, across from St. Ignatius. They wanted to build it right on the street like it should be. The town said, no, you need parking in the front, move the building back. The new athletic facility, why did they put it back? Why didn't they put the parking in the back? Who approved that permit? The town. Yes, the previous administration. Right. So that's why I'm optimistic. And that because now we have a committee that will hold their feet to the fire. There's another new building that they put up. They faced it in the wrong direction. The one that they got, it's facing north. It's on, you know, they just screw things up, but hopefully.
That's the point.
I know, but hopefully we got.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sure. Thank you. Yeah, it's very important to remember the past so we don't make the mistakes of the past going forward. That's my philosophy, and I know that's your philosophy. We're not going to make those mistakes. That's why we're here tonight listening. To not do something in some back room, and then everybody has to live with it, but listen to you. Listen to what you want. So, yes, sir.
The 4 parking garages at the MTA, I think, are they building it? Are they in control of that?
We are in the process of looking at that. One of the ways to do this, because there's not enough money, it's going to cost more than $10 million to build all those, is a private-public partnership between the MTA and private developers. That's one option.
But then, remember, that land right now was reserved for Oyster Bay residents only. If the MTA gets their hands on that, it's opened up to anyone in the state.
That's a very, very good point.
The people and the Dix Hill people are going to come in.
Let me clarify that.
Unless you pass somewhere where you can leave.
Let me clarify that, if you may. And I'm glad you brought that point up, because that's the kind of thing people worry about. When you spend state dollars, everybody in the state has to be allowed access. When it's town dollars alone, we can make it just for town residents. In a situation like this, we've already had conversations with the state where we can negotiate a percentage of the parking to be dedicated to Town of Oyster Bay residents and local residents only. So that is a great question that you bring up, and it's very important to allay people's fears. So that will be an important component in our negotiations to ensure that Town of Oyster Bay and local residents get first priority. And we'll negotiate it with the state to do, remember, we work for you, as you pointed out. Our job is to represent you, Town of Oyster Bay residents, first, foremost, and only. So that is something important. A lot of people are leaving, they have a babysitter, they're going to work in the morning before the room empties out anymore. I want to try a little experiment so I can take a temperature, if you will. I'm going to mention a number of projects here, and we're going to ask for a show of hands, and I'll list the projects first, just to see where you're leading. Again, over and over, we want to impress upon you that we want to do what you want. This is your community, your home, and we're here to listen to what you want. So let me list these projects, and then I'll go back And maybe what we'll do is everyone can get 2 votes on this. So you can vote for 2 projects so we don't have somebody voting for all of them, because that doesn't give us clarity. So think about these projects, and then afterwards we'll go back and you'll raise your hands and we'll get a feel for the percentages. We're going to be talking about the new Long Island Railroad entry drive, that plaza in front of the railroad station on the north side, that kiss and drop area. Kiss. Kick. Oh boy, it's crowded. I won't ask you for a ride to the railroad station. God knows what happens if you get a ride to the airport. The second, I'm feeling that. The second one is the new station plaza. The underline, which is obviously lighting and artwork and areas for maybe a market or other kinds of pop-up tents and an ability to have benches and so forth and lighting underneath the railroad tracks. 99 Hicksville Station Plaza. Retail business grants, which means help in putting up new facades on the buildings, signage, that type of thing. Nelson, you saw that walkway on Nelson, and the West Barclay development, which we could use some of this money as seed money, but we'd also need the majority of the funding to come from the MTA and from private developers to do the full scope of that project. So everybody gets 2 votes. You get to vote for 2 of these projects. So with a show of hands, the new Long Island Railroad entry drive. How many people would like to see that accomplished? And remember, we can do multiple projects. I need someone to keep track of a percentage of the folks here. What do you think? That's half? 50%? 60%?
I think it's more.
80? 80 is a fair number everybody agrees on? 80% of everyone. Okay. The next one, with a show of hands, remember you get to vote on 2 of these projects. The second one is the new station plaza. Right next to it. Right next to it. That could be concert space. Would someone point out new station plaza, please? All right. I'm thinking about 30% on that one. Is that something that we'll agree on?
Can you explain to us what that one is?
Yes, Cecil, can you just review what New Station Plaza does? This way we can leave this meeting getting a sense of what the majority of Hicksville wants.
This is the, what do you call the MTA on the plan? Yeah. Okay.
Just a reminder while he's doing that, if anyone has a problem with this process, remember the name, Anthony McAgnone.
Yeah, so this is about Station Plaza?
Yes.
So the idea is that this really, it adds another dimension. So the station drive would increase drop-off, but with landscaping would enhance the whole notion of the front door of the station.
Which one is the plaza? Wait, this is...
That's the first one. This is the first one.
This is the drop-off.
That's the first
over
one we
here.
go.
This is the plaza.
Okay.
Over here.
They have, you really need...
This should include the new station plaza with it.
Well, that could be your 2 votes then.
No,
The reason it's cut up this way is because there's a limited amount of money. Boy, when I started this process, I thought $10 million. Wow, huge amount of money. But as you see the process evolve, you realize it only goes so far, and you have to think about what is seed money, what is public space, what is something that developers could take over the responsibility for as we move forward. So, on the Long Island Railroad entry drive, we saw about 75%, maybe 80% of the hands went up. Now, who would like to put in one of their 2 votes for New Station Plaza? Music, entertainment space. No, we're just new station plaza.
What happens to the?
I'm sorry. Yes, the one we just talked about, Festival Plaza. We've been using a couple of different names. I apologize if I'm confusing anybody. We're looking at...
The Festival Plaza is the connection.
Because really, A and B have to go together.
Plaza all the way to JFK Park.
Yeah, I know. A and B has to go together. You can't.
That's what we talked about the first time. Okay, so for Festival Plaza now, the long stretch that brings it all together.
That's the expanded Kennedy Park.
That's the expanded Kennedy Park, the walkway, the green space along the railroad to take you all the way from Broadway to the railroad station.
I'll go for that.
Okay, now we're looking at, keep your hands up please. Let's agree on 75% of the people, is that fair?
Looks good.
75% we can agree on? Okay.
Well, that's
Now raise your hand if you'd like to cast your vote for the underline, underneath the railroad tracks. Lighting, pavers, green space. What do you think? 20%?
the majority already voted. We got 275.
Well, yes, but we have a limited amount of funding. Okay? Okay, but that's one of the things that we'll consider. Right now, we're just looking for where the desire is, and we can work out how the money works and how we tie it in. Okay, one last time, the underline. The underline. What do you think? 15%, 20% of everyone? Okay. Now, the 99 Hicksville Station Plaza. Again, about a 10%.
I'm voting anyway.
2 votes per person. Let's try to keep it to 2 votes per person.
We're out.
If 99, excuse me. Mr. Saladino.
Yes.
You rated this one up as 1.5 million. The station entrance was, if I'm not mistaken, was 4.3 million. Right? I thought like the 3 or 4 together added up to the 9.7.
Let's ask Cecil.
Let's ask Cecil how to
let's
come
bring
down.
some clarity
Let's do
to this.
everything.
Let's listen up, folks. It's a very good question.
Yeah, what the price for the station is paving, seating, doing the drainage, lighting. In this instance, what's being proposed here is helping.
I'm not denying that. What I'm saying is, well, how does this add up? You had a 4.3. The side part of the station, the drop-off area, was how much? And then how much is this? It's 1.5.
4.3 was the.
We've got 9.7 to play with, right?
We have about 9 point, I think.
I know the more meetings we go, it goes down.
They asked us for 12 to 15.
Yes.
So that's 4.3.
If we do everything that you had here, would we spend the 9.7 or go over?
2 votes doesn't, making this 2-vote business is
Doesn't work.
No,
No, but I want to know what the numbers are. This is 4.3.
If we can do everything you showed us for 9.7, then do it.
It's very simple.
I want to find out the cost aside.
Well, it's not cost aside because...
I understand that. I understand. But to simplify this and get the feedback we need, I'm asking where your priorities are. The cost is a factor, but rather than complicate this by trying to figure out, well, I can get 3 projects for that amount, I just want to know what your highest priority is. You want 3 votes?
Make a nice, clean setup for Hicksville.
Okay. Okay.
Simple.
So,
something that's going to be able to grow and mushroom, you know, roll along and get some
what
private
about,
money in here.
let me just get through this list, please, and then we'll get back to your questions. The retail business grants for new facades, new signage. I thought we did. Did we get that vote on 99 Station Plaza? It wasn't a lot of people. One more time, 99 Station Plaza. All right, about 10%. Yes. The retail grants for new facades on the buildings, new perhaps new lighting, new signage. Okay. And West Barclay. That's also a smaller amount. Okay. All right. So we have some sense that some of the highest priorities are this expansive, clean, and unified areas, is what you were talking to, in the connected areas of the Long Island Railroad Station entry drive, the new Station Plaza, the Underline, and the Festival Plaza. If there's a way to fit all those together and make it in the amount that we have, who would like to see those 4 projects together as the overall use of this money?
Is that the Station Plaza?
Station Plaza, which is the entry to the railroad station. This whole unified area. Do we have that slide, Cecil? Sounds like the whole unified and connected area is what most people would like to see. Is what I'm gleaning from this. Okay, so that's this Station Plaza that runs parallel with the railroad tracks on the north side and connects all of these areas together. The area under the railroad tracks for pavers that continue, the seating, lighting, the areas that and Festival Plaza, which could be outdoor entertainment. That's what I'm determining. Is everybody seeing that is what the majority of the people concerned with this project want? Okay. Well, that helps us a lot. You're giving us more clarity. So just to move toward your question or statement, sir.
Well, my question was answered. There was no number of apartments connected so we didn't know what we were going on.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. That's something that goes with the negotiations. That's something that we'll find out how much the MTA. You have a price. You have a certain number of parking spots and a certain number of facilities. Because I think most people are in agreement. This design is better than one huge parking garage. It's not very attractive, and this has a mixed use and a reason to come there besides just get in your car and go home. Yes, Rich.
Just a quick question. Does 99 Hicksville Station Plaza go forward without the seat?
At this point in time, their funding includes the seed money, and without it, no.
It doesn't go forward?
At this point in time, their financing and everything is based on them receiving grant money.
I'm not going to try and argue a point, but I just think it's important if you get a real project off the ground.
But that's the reason it was included as including public, which was Station Plaza Festival, and we thought that we needed a private project, and that will launch the Nelson Avenue development. That's why it was included as a recommendation. The LPC included it to move forward as a recommendation.
I personally agree with that, but we've already spent the money on all of those other items, which is really...
Some of the other items, the $4.3 million for Station Entry Drive, can be $3 million. We can remove the canopy, which is $1 million, and we can get the MTA to do something with that possibly later. So some of these Station Plaza could come in at $2.4 million instead of $3.3. The numbers that we have are top of the line numbers to make it look amazing. I mean, that's what we want to do. We think that's what the community deserves. So we, out of the $9.7 million, we think we can do as 3 as well as the private development.
Okay, because again, speaking from my own personal perspective, I think a project like 99 is extremely important to show other developers what can actually be done, and then you have the domino effect.
Exactly. That's why we included a private project in for advancement to the state.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Yes, sir.
And you're saying basically that this work will be able to go out to bid by next February?
Yeah, where are we on this? Yes? Cecil?
Yes.
Let's get some more specifics. Okay, by the end of this month, we have to give them the list. The state asks for more projects than can be afforded with the $10 million. So there's room to grow or for them to say, yes, this one, no, that one. So the list has to be more than $10 million worth, and that has to be submitted by March 30th. So we're being told by early summer 2018, the state will make that announcement, and I'll be pushing. You better believe I'll be calling so much it's easier to give us the answer than to keep getting my phone calls. So we'll be pushing the state to get that decision made as quickly as possible. And then early next summer, and then from there, the projects get awarded and the work begins.
So you're talking next
winter
February.
is what they're telling us.
Next February.
Well, could be
okay.
December, but next winter they're telling us that's what the target is in the process. What other comments? Who else? We've been doing this since about 7. We've gotten lots of good input, and quite frankly, of all the meetings that I've been part of in the last year, I think this one is the most productive. Another public meeting?
There is. No more public?
No.
No public.
There is a final LPC meeting, I believe it's March 15th,
No more public.
but no more public workshops. The rest of the meetings will be LPC meetings, which are open to the public, but they will be for the committee members.
So, but just to dovetail that point, every day is a public meeting in our offices in the town of Oyster Bay. If you have not yet given us your email address, your contact information, please give it to us tonight. We want to continue to communicate with you, and we want to continue to get your input throughout this entire process. Send it back to our office, right? To the Town of Oyster Bay. You go to the Town of Oyster Bay website, yes. Send them to my office, that's correct. To the Town of Oyster Bay, Supervisor Joseph Saladino, 54 Audrey Avenue, Oyster Bay. And we will collect all the information and make sure they have it. And we have been joined by someone who has been a part of this program for years and years, because earlier we talked about, well, who's watching out for Hicksville, as we all are, and at the top of that list is a legislator extraordinaire, our very own Rose Walker. Thank you, Rose, for all you're doing in this process.
What's that?
Well, as we said from the very beginning, thank you. We continue to show the rest of the state how it should be done. I want to thank you for your professionalism, your courtesies, the way you have conducted yourself through this whole process. Yes, it's complicated. Yes, this isn't easy. We get that. But the way that you have all been a part of this has been extraordinary. And I know that this project will come out tremendously successful and will open the door or be that catalyst to far more in the community. And our job is to make sure that your needs are addressed and your input is listened to through the entire process. So I want to thank you very, very much. Am I giving this to Cecil to close? So thank you again, and make sure you give us your information so we can keep you up to date on all stages throughout this process. Thank you very much for your cooperation.
Enough junk in my email.
Yeah, thank you. Good night. Just fill out the forms, please, if you can. And hang them in at the door before you leave. Thanks, everyone.